Welcome everybody to episode 57 of China Talk. This is the regionals episode. The regionals are coming. The regionals are coming. It's the worst reference I've ever made in my life. Okay, so Edward Gaming, Invictus Gaming, Qiao Gu, Reapers. I'm kind of sad they didn't name themselves the Reapbirds to make it that much more awkward for the EDG matchup. Uh, and Snake Esports. So, 4 teams, 2 slots, and of course it's double bracket and all. So, for this episode, we are defending. We've randomly drawn team names, and we are essentially going to be defending these teams and their run through the regionals and their chances. Essentially, we're going to have debate topics. This is going to be a thing. So, let's go person by person to see what we drew out. Let's go, Michael. Drexen, what'd you draw?
Snake. Snake.
Snake. Yeah. All right.
He's not dead yet. Okay. In case people have been not watching LPL but watched this show for some reason for the last 10 weeks or 12 weeks or whatever. Snake is a team that is still kind of new to LPL in the sense that they joined last spring, and everybody that tuned into LSPL kind of thought it was between them and King to rise up and be super good, and the King thing didn't happen. That's for damn sure. So even though they were really good in the off season, when Snake came into the LPL, they actually they got away with playing really well, but they were really, really one-dimensional in their play. But nobody really knew how to handle their one-dimensional play. So what they did really well when they actually were able to do it was incredibly strong. And they were doing really well in the regular season until the playoffs came, and people were a little bit more prepared, and they were ill-prepared for a best-of-5 against LPL teams. And oddly enough, they went against King, who they did defeat, but it was a very, very close set when in the regular season the disparity between the two teams was pretty huge at that time, or at least it looked like. And then after that, you kind of learned, Snake kind of learned that by getting crushed by LGD, I think directly after the spring playoffs when they met in the semifinals. It wasn't even close. It was just the games are somewhat close, even though there was a 3-0 scoreline, but overall they did lose every single game, and LGD made it pretty convincing by the end. So they learned that if they're going to be playing these top teams, that they're not going to be able to get away with what they were doing in the regular season. So, going to use that lovely word experimentation. So what Snake did
Don't
is
say the E word.
in the summer
Stop
split,
the E word,
they used
please.
No, stop. No.
Stop.
in the summer.
No one ever experiments ever, Mike, okay? Everyone is 100% serious all the time, every single game. Okay, let's keep going.
All right. So anyway, this actually happened. They did experiment. Whether it's a good idea or not, I don't know. I don't care.
How do you know they
That's
experiment? Do you
that's a
listen
side
to
topic.
yourself, Drexen?
It's
Are you
bad.
listening to yourself? They're just bad teams.
So anyway, yeah. So lots of good things happen.
No, but seriously, how do you know they experimented?
Okay, so
So
because
if we're gonna
here's the
do
thing.
this, we might as well
No.
do this.
No. On a serious note, Snake did try to divert their style, and it looked really, really bad for a while. Actually, they tried to implement split pushing and different covert missions with objectives and stuff like that, and it was just not going for them. But in a way, it was good because it expanded their repertoire, and even though they weren't good at those styles, and they still kind of revolve around finding a strong team fight, or a 5v5 specifically, not so much skirmishes, it gave them more experience playing against those kind of things, I feel. And I think that after they decided to do these kind of strategies, that they were stronger against teams that were diversifying their own strategies as well. On top of that, they kind of put the hot seat under a lot of their members by bringing in substitutes and stuff like that, Martin for Crystal, who ended up doing really well in his showing, I believe. And at the time of the meta was actually really nice, because even though Crystal had been starting to diversify his role a little bit, because he played a lot of Sivir, I think it was his most played champion, and he actually did pretty well on it. Martin kind of gave that flexibility as a safe player rather than a player that needs to carry the game. And probably the biggest one is their new mid laner Yu, which is actually really cool because you can kind of in a stretch kind of make this Okay, never mind. It's a shitty. That's a shitty narrative. I was gonna say EDG revenge on their mid lane for fun, but no. Yeah. Anyway, EDG's old mid laner Yu came in, and he gets. I feel like he actually gets a lot more freedom on this team than he did on EDG, and I think it pays off really well. And I think that's a huge deal for Snake. So, yeah, that's kind of where we are come the playoffs. Oh, and also Beast had ZZR contesting first spot, but I do believe that they are using Beast for the playoffs. So I don't really know yet, but it's probably a good idea that they use Beast just because he's more experienced. And ZZR had mentioned that he like looks up to and respects Clear Love, which could be a bad sign because if you think you're strictly inferior to your opponent in a playoff match, then that'll probably mess with your head. So good choice by them. And Ella is obviously already pretty good. And Flandra, this I don't know why I didn't bring this guy up. So he was forced into like so many Maokai games and stuff like that that he wasn't really familiar with in the spring split. Whereas in LSPL, he's always a carry top laner utilizing like really strange builds and champions and stuff like that. And to an extent, they kind of found like a really good even ground with this guy. Like they finally got it. Like sometimes he still goes a little bit too ham, but they kind of got it right with a balance with this guy. Like now he is a carry top laner, but he's like a little bit more reliable, like a little bit more meta, like not so unreasonable with his, well, sometimes not so unreasonable. Like they're still fine tuning him. He's like an instrument. Like he's really nice once you like tune it, but it's like it sounds all shitty when you don't tune it. I don't know where that reference is going, but anyway, that's Flandra. And so they have a lot of reliable threats on Snake, and even though I still kind of think that they are too reliant on the 5v5 team fight, that through exploring all these methods of playing the game, or at least my hypothesis is through exploring all these methods of playing the game, they found ways not so much to win games using other strategies, but to force these 5v5s to happen. So that's kind of where the Snake is and how they came up.
But weren't they just bad at those other strategies? I mean,
yes.
Yeah, we actually agree with that. We actually think they weren't as bad at some of these experimental strategies. Okay, we're not saying that they're like super awesome. Okay, I'm done.
See, I expelled the salt, so
I think Snake, like, I think what's really cool about Snake though is just that it felt like in spring they had no idea how to use a regular season to prepare for playoffs, and then it was the polar opposite in this season. Like they understood that they had to use these. Oh wait, never mind. There's no experimentation. Blah, blah. No, but no. Seriously, they understood that they had a long season and they knew that they were likely to make playoffs. I'm assuming, just based on prior performances and the fact that even in the beginning they were still pretty well in the standings, so they could afford to do these kind of things and prepare. So now they use summer to learn a lot, and I really like that.
And I don't think it was something like where they came in and they premeditated going into the summer. It's like for the first 2 games we're gonna try it. For the first like 2 weeks we're gonna try poke comps, and then after we have enough experience trying poke comps, we're gonna try this more split push based strategy, and then we're gonna try like assassin based compositions. No, they probably just kind of went into games. They're like, so what do you guys feel like playing today? Yeah, we haven't tried that in a while. Let's wing it. Like that's probably what they did, and it's still a better use of their regular season time than like playing the same thing over and over again. So we're not arguing that they like premeditated super mastermind this experimentation. It was just honestly like it might as well have been goofing off, but I do think it made them better. So sorry, I had to get that off my chest, but I feel better now. So I'll stop interrupting people.
No, that's fine. That's fine. I expelled the salt with the interesting block. Didn't do much, but I still felt a little salty afterwards, but I just rested and all was fine. So Kelsey, on topic here, what team did you get drawn with?
I drew Edward Gaming. As you can see, I'm wearing their shirt, and I also have bosoms, so I'm doing Clear Love proud in my own way. Edward Gaming, you probably know about unless you haven't been paying any attention to International League of Legends at all. Like, I don't know, maybe suddenly you grew interested in Worlds, but you had no interest in MSI. So starting from last year, they obviously had a really terrible Worlds showing. If you watched Worlds with their 2 Chinese players, Yu, who Mike just talked about, and Name. Name did not have a good showing. There's a debate as to whether he was sick or just bad. I don't know. We're not going to cover that here. They got Deft and Pawn, who said they joined the team because they thought Clearlove was really good and they knew him from solo queue. And so as long as you're paying them a lot of money, they might as well join a team with Clearlove, right? So they went into the spring season playing kind of a disjointed style, but they were still extremely good at, winning some of their lanes. Like, Koro had gotten significantly better at being self-sufficient and playing lane really, really well. Pawn had really strong lane pressure. Their bottom lane was still kind of questionable. They had like a support who wasn't that good at the time, and then they played with Deft. They had a Snake game where they got 2-0'd, and immediately, like, they bring in, well, not immediately, but the next week they bring in another support named Mako. And Clearlove's jungle pressure seems to improve significantly over time. He's ganking bottom lane a lot. They're a very bottom lane centric team. In ganking, in a recent interview, Mako actually said, "Our bottom lane isn't even the best in LPL. We just win a lot because Clearlove makes us win." Then you have Koro and Pan, who play extremely self-sufficient solo lanes. They had a ridiculously good spring season where they went nearly undefeated. They had some stumbling in playoffs where they said they had trouble practicing because Pawn was sick. They went to MSI. They did really well at MSI except for the one game against SKT where apparently they decided to wing a composition that the players wanted to try. Okay. And then they did much better in a much better planned out series against SKT in the finals and won, but it was still very close games, obviously. And then they went into this new season with a very, very puzzling approach where they were playing a different top laner, Amazing J, and a different mid laner, Baimi. And they started to lose a lot of games. It didn't look so good. They were saying that they wanted to give newer players time to play, but they were also saying that both of their solo laners were coincidentally sick at the same time. So, but then the playoffs format changed, and suddenly Koro 1 and Pawn were magically healed. And
by the power of Sanshao.
By the power of Sanshao, yes. Sanshao is our Lord and Savior. And they, just started stomping again. They went undefeated, 21 games. Does this sound familiar, guys? 21 undefeated games, maybe Fnatic storyline. They went into the playoffs.
The Chiefs.
Woo! They went into playoffs. Clearlove said, if we stumble in playoffs, we'll win Worlds. If we just easily win playoffs, we will have trouble at Worlds. Well, they kind of careened into a wall, but, nevertheless, they did indeed stumble. They lost 0-3 to LGD Gaming. Really strange, bizarre drafts. They lost 1-3 to Invictus Gaming. Really strange, bizarre drafts. Really high mid lane focus from the jungle in those games as well, and uncharacteristic team fighting. Typically, they're like a Baron-centric team fighting type team. That is also extremely early game focused in terms of lane pressure and jungle control. So that is Edward Gaming.
Tournament format is it best of 3? Best
The
of 3?
first round is best of 3, and then the subsequent rounds are best of 5. So it's going to be 2 best of 3s and 3 best of 5s.
Okay, and so of course it's double bracket going in, so losers bracket there, and last game is best of 5, but of course if you've already made it to the grand final, you have qualified for Worlds. So, yeah, that works out.
I don't think there's actually going to be a grand final. I think it's going to be a...
Oh, just qualify.
Yeah, you just qualify. The upper bracket winner and the lower bracket winner qualify.
Alright.
Interesting, I actually didn't know that.
Pretty interesting. Okay, so should we start up with the matchups, I guess? Executive decision. So, alright, so Michael, what edge do you think Snake has over EDG?
Normally I wouldn't say team fighting, because even though I just spent a lot of time praising their team fighting, EDG's been really good at it. But, strictly going off of recent data, not so much what I think will happen based on both teams at their prime. I'd say that EDG was a little bit lacking in communication on who went in their recent games, or like how to follow up and stuff like that. And I think that's something that Snake could easily capitalize on. So yeah, I'm a little bit concerned for EDG's like focus target prioritization. And I think Snake's really got that down, but we haven't seen Snake play in a while, so that's also something to consider. But they've always had really, really strong, just straight up 5v5s. And another thing is that I feel like Yu has just gotten better and better this season, whereas I think that Pawn has been in a slump a little bit. So I actually think that that'll be an interesting matchup. And I actually think Flandra will probably beat Koro at this rate too. So I think it's actually really interesting to be in a situation where EDG might have to play solo lanes from behind, and kind of rely on Deft to be their primary damage source again. But I mean, I could be wrong, but this is how I feel about it. I think that, well, actually, I'll just let Kelsey explain how EDG will win. But I do think Snake will rely just on making 5v5s happen and forcing them to be so. And also, I do think this is the first time where I can say that Snake will probably like have an edge in the solo lanes, which I think is really interesting. So.
All right, Kelsey.
So, Snake, over the split, even though they've been trying things and they've been working on things, they had a weakness, and this has been something that's plagued them all year, with lane swaps. And I do think they've gotten a little bit better. They've had games where lane swaps went favorably, but they've also had games where they haven't, and they've just been extremely awkward. Like in the Royal Never Give Up set, they did swap, but they swapped into almost unfavorable matchups in every lane. They had trouble in lane swap situations against LGD when LGD did some of their interesting like three-way swaps, and so it's just their ability to control lane swap situations has seemed questionable and inconsistent, but not as bad as it was. One of the biggest lane swap deficits that they actually had was against EDG, and EDG wasn't even playing their main lineup, so the communication was probably a little bit different. They were playing with Ray top and Jin Zhao, AD carry, and they played a lane swap situation where they abused Draven Snowball against Snake. And Clearlove just dove early and got the Draven ahead, because if you stack up enough CS and enough of the passive, even if you aren't really playing aggressively in lane, and you suddenly get a kill, you can be extremely ahead of your opposing laner. So they did that extremely well, and they snowballed very hard in both of those games where they played the Draven, and they had their top laner play carry style, EDG did, but they had, instead of him trying to 2v1 or play lanes from behind, he actually went mid and ganked you a lot. So that also helped snowball the laners, and then Snake just didn't react to that plan at all very well. It was actually pretty humiliating for them. So I think you can be in a situation, and EDG is like the most dominant early game team. They average 2,000 gold ahead at 20 minutes, regardless of when they win or lose. And I think in wins, it's like 7,000 gold ahead. Something stupid and ridiculous, like that stat can't actually be right. So I just think that for them, they won't even have to get to a situation where they have to 5v5 or they have to work on some of that, and they'll just snowball really hard. Whereas LGD can be, like in the LGD matchup, even if LGD doesn't have the best jungler, they're pretty proactive in the early game, and they understand like macro play a little bit well. So even though they did fall behind, you could see them kind of making some counter movements. And then in the IG set, obviously they have a really, really strong jungler in Qiao who can counteract some of EDG's early movements, but I just don't see the same thing out of like ZZR and Beast, and Flandra, sometimes his willingness to be extremely proactive backfires on him really hard. So I think that's a place where early to mid game EDG can just close out without having to deal with Snake's late game team fighting.
Okay, perfect. I think we'll just move on to the next one of Qiao Gu versus IG, and then we'll start voting on who we actually think will win in the brackets, and then move forward off of that. Okay. So, Emily, what team do you represent here?
Okay, so I drew Qiao Gu, and for those who
That's so
aren't
convenient.
I know, right? Since I spent a lot of time talking about them recently. Okay, so Qiao Gu is a team that is new to the LPL this split, actually. And they've changed a lot. If you watch them in LSPL, they were pretty much a like win lane, win game kind of team. They had Swift, who the team followed up on his engages about like I would say half of the time. And then the rest of the time they really just relied on their lanes to kind of snowball to win, because they had stronger lanes than the vast majority of the other LSPL teams, so they didn't really need to like try anything else. Like it didn't necessitate any sort of adaptation. Their prior experience in like best of 5 situations came in Demacia Cup, and that's really where you first saw, I guess, some of their willingness to like try out some weird stuff that like other teams might not even think about. I know a lot of people cite this, and I do have to remind everyone that it was a mistake. But that was the first time we saw Doinby going Maokai mid was in Demacia Cup, because basically their coach Hero told them, oh, you know, Maokai is a counter to Victor, and they took it literally instead of like what any other team would do, which is to put Maokai top and then obviously use it in team fights. Qiao Gu was like, no, we're just gonna go Maokai mid, and it turned into this crazy like Jugger tree comp with Lulu, and it was hilarious.
Yeah.
And I highly suggest you go back and watch that game. But that was kind of the first inclination that anyone had that Qiao Gu was going to be any sort of team that tried out new compositions, tried out stuff different, and wasn't just going to be this kind of like, we're going to rely on stomping our lanes.
Also,
So
they won that game.
they did. They won that game.
To the shock of many, you know.
To the shock of all, I think.
I believe, especially Monte Cristo was kind of salty about that game, but I mean, it was against WE, so
Yeah,
to be
that-
clarified,
I mean,
it's not
yeah.
like they
Yeah.
upset the
It's not like a
strongest team in
good
China with that
team,
composition. Yeah, so.
Oh my god.
It's
So
not like the second place mid or
I know.
quarter season world champions.
with Jugger.
Quarter season.
Oh god. So
Quarter
anyway,
season.
come to this split, and Qiao Gu actually do really well during the regular season, which kind of drew comparisons to Snake of the prior season, because Qiao Gu does have some really like obvious weaknesses. In terms of like I said, going into this season, people thought they were going to be really unadaptable. They obviously showed in, if you go back and watch those Demacia Cup games that I'm talking about, they didn't know how to react to lane swaps. They didn't know how to react to like specific team compositions they had to go against because they had to face it in the LSPL. So as soon as they were thrown into the LPL, you see after the first couple weeks, they really started experimenting with lane swaps. They were one of the teams that lane swapped the most throughout the entire season, even when you would think that you wouldn't want to lane swap in those situations because of the champions that they chose. So that was, and then it kind of forced them to become this team that now is usually at like a goal deficit off the bat. And then they end up relying on their mid to late game team fighting. A lot of that comes from their jungler Swift, who I mentioned, because now basically the entire team is designed around his engages. He usually spends the first bit farming, so he's not like a super heavy ganking jungler, which is another reason why they don't have like a significantly proactive early game. But as soon as they group up to team fight, it makes a huge difference. And their 5v5 team fighting is honestly the best in the world, in my opinion. So yeah, that's pretty much the lowdown on Qiao Gu. They just recently faced both IG and LGD in going through the LPL playoffs, the LPL summer playoffs, and they lost a best of 5 to LGD in the finals, which was surprisingly closer than I thought. I didn't think LGD did play up to like their full capacity, but I was pleasantly surprised by Qiao Gu in terms of how they tried to respond to a lot of LGD's map movements. I thought it showed a lot of like intelligence that they hadn't had previously in the season. So
Okay, so I guess that's left with me. I guess I picked the last team, Invictus Gaming, aka my favorite team. So this works out well for me. IG is a team that, if you know them, oh my god, the two staples essentially, IG and World Elite. IG was the team that always did really well in the spring, and then when it actually mattered in the summer, when it comes to, of course, World's qualifications, they did poorly. And so in this season specifically, or at least for the past 2 seasons, I'd like to say their top lane has always been like just very up in the air. They had Yongsu, they had Pokemon. I think Save was before Pokemon. They had that whole pull and push and pull between Save and Pokemon, depending on
Mostly
who they wanted
Pokemon.
for. Yeah,
Yeah.
pretty much.
There were like 3
Oh, and also
games
Save had
total
that
where Save played.
Mhm.
He
One of the
played
most-
mid LeBlanc.
Yeah.
Oh my
Yeah.
god. But yeah, they had too many Koreans, so they had to figure out which one was the most valuable, essentially. And it came out that the most valuable was Rookie and Kakao. That mid lane jungle synergy was so valuable, and they ended up finding. And Pokemon was a player who didn't really perform.
He was bad, Raz.
I
You could
wanted
just
him to
say it.
perform.
Well, he just
But-
didn't perform.
When your
He
entire
just-
when your
yeah.
team treats you publicly like a meme, you know
Yeah.
you're not doing so hot.
We'd like to give our MVP to Pokemon because he didn't screw up this time.
Oh my god. The greatest team environment. So
Save, who's your favorite Chinese person on the team? Pokemon, and then he can't even say it with a straight face. He's like laughing and ashamed. It's
Pokemon.
terrible.
But it's alright because the tie decided I'm going to be the most motivated player on this team. He took up the reins, he became the top laner, he learned the champions, or at least he was picking them up by his master, PDD. And he took the reins, and of course, at first it was shaky, he was pretty bad, but then he became honestly one of the. He still was very up and down as a player. But actually, he just became, I feel like, the emotional backbone of the team. He was strong, and when in his good games, he was really good. Like I would say that he was the best in the region, in his good games. That's just it's very high, very low, like kind of a bit unfortunate. But it spoke a lot to the problems that plagued the team as well. The team, honestly, their greatest enemies were themselves, their own emotions. If they could play, if they performed, they played so well. And honestly, I think the biggest example, or the best example, I mean, would be the playoffs in which they played against Qiao Gu, in which their early game was phenomenal, and I think in game 1, and then they played extremely well, and then as the game went on, you realize that okay, they're starting to throw this game. And when they threw the game, the rest of the series just showed, I feel like it just showed tilt. Like they never got to that level again. But then, of course, you saw their games against EDG, and it really did feel like this team, you could never bet on the team. I think this is the worst promotion of this team.
I know.
I've
You can
ever
never
made.
bet on this
I
team, but
do
they're
get
gonna
You
win.
never-
I'm so convinced now.
Don't bet on this team. But honestly, you look at this team, you look at the roster that they have, this name by name, the only thing that was really holding them back was their own motivation. And what's better motivation? Literally, what is better motivation than Worlds qualification? And recently they have been storming through EDG, they've been showing themselves to be quite a force. So I think this would be the time. And if it's Qiao Gu, then they've beaten them in the early game before, and now you just got to tell them to keep their advantage and keep in the game. That's essentially what it
Keep
is.
your dreams,
So.
IG. It didn't work for WE, but keep your dreams.
Keep your dreams, IG. All right, so Emily,
Yo.
this matchup, how do you think Qiao Gu's gonna win this?
All right, so Qiao Gu is going to win this because you mentioned the mid jungle synergy,
Mhm.
and I think there's a really interesting comparison in what Rookie and Kakao do versus what Doinby does for Swift. And that's
Mhm.
not to say in any way that Doinby is a better mid laner than Rookie, because I actually don't think that's true. But I think in terms of the way both teams work, that's kind of like the core of the team is the mid laner and the jungle, and then how
Yeah.
they dictate the pace of the game. Now, you mentioned that IG has actually had really strong early games against Qiao Gu, but the thing is that Qiao Gu usually, in their most recent games, has had poor early games overall because Swift is primarily farming, and then again, they rely on their mid to late game team fighting, which is usually initiated by Doinby and Swift. So I think in terms of that kind of matchup, previously when we saw IG performing, they were also relying on the late game, and if that happens again against Qiao Gu, they're just not going to be able to beat them in team fights. I think there's going to be a lot of interesting contested picks for example, during the playoffs, this entire matchup was pretty much decided by who picked Nidalee, which I think is really, really important because, again, both of these teams are heavily reliant on their junglers. So I think like Nidalee, Gragas, and Elise are probably going to be like super, super important to this matchup. And obviously LGD, when they won against Qiao Gu, they banned Nidalee every single game because they just didn't want Swift on that champion. Because I think in terms of the way Swift plays, Nidalee allows him to have a strong early game while still like farming up during the early game as well. So it kind of takes away from his lack of ganking, his lack of pressure, and adds it just based on the fact that that's a champion, like the way Nidalee is designed as champion. So I think that will be a really hotly contested pick because they're not going to want that to go to Cacao either. But I think just in general, again, when I watch these teams, a lot of the time they were forcing standard lanes. And while I did spend the vast majority talking about how Qiao Gu has lane swapped and they've tried to go away from standard lanes, I think the standard lane matchup favors them in the bot lane. Middle lane's kind of weird because IG is definitely relying on Rookie to farm up, and once he does, I think he does have the edge on Doinby, even though Doinby provides a lot of control on the center of the map for Swift. And then I actually think Zatai also beats V. So it's really going to depend on how well Qiao Gu can force team fights. But I have faith in them being able to do that just based on their playoff appearance against IG. I thought it was a pretty good example of how that matchup will play out if both teams play how they've been playing recently.
Yeah.
Makes sense?
Okay. Well, for me, I feel like IG can take the series by essentially understanding that they need to split push. Like, they do have the best players, I think. Like, Rookie is debatably best player in the world. He hasn't been playing one recently, but that's just, what can you do? Cacao is the same. Like they like every time I want to buff up a player, I realize I second guess myself too often. Essentially, it feels like they have the best players. They can play extremely well as a team, and they.
What can you do? Just.
I actually think Qiao Gu's bot lane is better than IG's bot lane.
Yeah,
IG's
but
bot lane.
but
no,
at the
I
same
think
time,
IG's
IG's
lane.
bot lane destroyed EDGs, right? So okay, we're trying to help you out here, Raz.
No,
Trying to help
I
you
think
out.
IG's bot lane is like legitimately the best if they want to be. If they give Kitties his champion, like literally just Janna, like get Thresh, I guess. Just give him something that he can play properly. And like
You got a pretty good bard, huh? Huh?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's just hard to appreciate other bards on PYL.
Yeah.
Sure on it.
And sure, he has like a short.
I mean, he's
champion pool,
literally
but
the only other bard. So.
he's literally the only other. Like, he plays it really well, like extremely well. And if you give Kid like any of the champions that he, like, sure, Corky, but I'd much prefer like his Vayne or his Callista than like if he even gets Callista, if that escapes picks and bans. But like, if you give IG's bot lane exactly what if they play what they're good at, then they're perfectly fine. Like, they're perfectly fine. So I think that this team, I think IG can take the game against Qiao Gu by just simply being the better split pushing team, and they've shown the ability to split push properly. So
Drafting.
yeah.
Drafting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, their drafting is okay. That's a really good point. Every time I tell myself I'm gonna mention it, I forget to mention it. They are the smartest drafting team, period. I honestly think that they're the smartest team. Like, when they prepare for a match, they actually kill drafting. And I don't know if it's Mafa or if it's just the team as a whole, but it's like you can tell when they're actually prepared for a set and when they actually have their mindset in the game. Really good example is just, like, I always bring it up because I just always like, it's like fun memories that always get left in my mind, was when they faced against Snake and every other team was like, okay, how do we deal with Snake? Her, like in the spring split. Like, how do we can't deal with this team. And they had the greatest kind of burst composition and Vayne on the side, but of course for whatever reason, Kid has this thing with Vayne where he's like, I can't play it, but when I do, I succeed, but I just can't. So
You can
regardless,
build a Trinity Force on Vayne.
hey, that's true. That's true.
Epic memes.
Memes. Yeah, IG I do think that IG will win. Like they will beat Qiao Gu just based on the intelligence of the team. They know how to. They have the blueprint of winning the set. They just have to consistently follow it throughout the game.
They
Rather
just need to
than
do what they do in playoffs and actually make the first move for once. Like, Jesus
Yeah.
Christ, they looked so good when they did that. But
damn.
whether they do it or not is up for debate.
Yeah. All right. And so I guess we should now go into who do we think is gonna win out in these sets as like a kind of a vote. So EDG versus Snake. Let's throw in the votes. Let's throw in the ballot. I'll go in with EDG. I guess that's the easiest answer. Emily,
I'm gonna go EDG.
Kelsey.
I mean, you can't see it, but I'm showing my shirt again, so it's excellent.
There we go.
Okay.
There we got it.
EDG.
Jackson.
I'm also going to go with EDG just because I don't want to get tossed up by the fact that they didn't perform well in playoffs. And while I do think this is Snake's best chance to actually win this set, I actually believe in Clear Love's statement as not just Worlds, but as in like, okay, we're going to show these motherfuckers what's up if we do bad, period. So,
Yeah.
I'm going to go with EDG as well.
We got the EDG votes. All right. Going for Qiao Gu versus IG. Let's do this, Drexen. I know, right? This is harder than I thought it would be.
Wow.
Yeah, actually, it is, to be honest, because I don't know what IG is going to show up, but I can kind of expect QG to at least be really good at team fighting and at least have really strong bottom lane. So I'm gonna go with QG, but I will say that IG does have potential to win this set. I actually feel like this should be a closer set than EDG versus Snake. Personally, I feel.
Okay. Kelsey.
Yeah, I'm gonna go Qiao Gu. I think that you can't bet on an inconsistent team, and I think that Qiao Gu has more consistencies than IG. And then the last performance, we saw that kind of the main Trump champion was Nidalee, and IG won the games they had in Italy, Qiao Gu won the games they had in Italy, but then when Italy was banned, Qiao Gu came through at the end. So if you finally get the draft down and you eliminate the variables, I think Qiao Gu will have the advantage.
You still get a larger gain if you bet on the least consistent team. So just
Although
Yeah,
I
there
do
you go,
want to see
incentivize.
if IG can get away with the way they were playing like in the playoffs against Swift and see how that goes, because I think that'll be an interesting matchup.
all right, Emily.
I think the last time these two teams met, like I said, even when IG was like more proactive in the early game, Qiao Gu usually was able to come back through like late game team fighting, and I think that's what this set's going to come down to as well. Again, I don't think it's not a huge hard and fast like where in the first one I was just like, oh, EDG, because I do think IG has the potential to win this set, but I think Qiao Gu is more consistent, and they've already proven that they can beat IG in a best of 5, even when IG is playing pretty well. So,
Okay, my vote is going with IG, not because like I rep IG, but I think that the key pick will probably come in the mid lane. I think that if they can get Twisted Fate, or if they even can get just like even Victor, I know that Victor's probably going to be one of the larger contested picks as well. So Victor, Twisted Fate, either one. I don't even know which patch this is going to be on. That's probably a big deal, actually.
It's probably 5.15.
yeah.
Okay.
Doinby did come out and say, if Victor's up, he first picks it. So, I think Qiao Gu values Victor enough.
So Azir, Victor, I'll give it to IG. It'll be a really close set, though.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely do think IG has potential to win this set, but I don't know, they would have to show up as their best. It would have to be like playing at their peak.
Doinby's and Rookie's champion pools overlap a lot, and they're both kind of willing to play more fringe things as well. So,
I think a lot of people would murder you if you tried to compare those two directly.
Yeah, no. I think Rookie is much better, but I think honestly it's going to come down to jungle matchup a lot, because Swift and Kakao have both been pretty inconsistent in terms of where they put their early pressure and how much they apply this season. but I think Kakao has a slight edge in that department, and Rookie has a slight edge. So I mean, it'll be really interesting to see. So, but I
Okay.
do think Qiao Gu will win just because I think they play better as a team.
Okay, so Qiao Gu advances, EDG advances. Now it's going to be EDG versus Qiao Gu.
Actually, that might not happen.
Hmm?
That might happen, right? Like there might
Yeah,
not
that
be
might.
finals, right?
Yeah, that might happen in round 2.
Wait.
Yeah,
Oh,
no,
I'm
no.
retarded.
We're talking about the next round.
Losers. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Yeah,
So-
yeah.
Like,
my
wait a
bad.
minute.
The way so Saturday is going to be, or no, Friday. Excuse me. Friday we'll know the second seed for China because they're just gonna do the first two upper. They're gonna do the entire upper bracket on Friday, and then on Saturday they're gonna do the entire lower bracket. So we'll know the third seed after Saturday.
Okay.
So
now with EDG versus Qiao Gu, it is literally going to be a debate, or at least just like point for point with Emily versus Kelsey. So Emily, you're going up
Right.
against EDG.
Okay.
What's up? How are you going to do it?
So, how QG beats EDG, it's going to be tough, but I don't think it's completely inconceivable, mainly because a lot of IG's problems, or oh my gosh, a lot of EDG's problems that they showed in the playoffs came from inconsistency in their team fighting, and it'd be like one or two members at a time that just wouldn't seem to be on the same page as the rest of the team. And I think that Qiao Gu would definitely be able to take advantage of that because, again, they're the best 5v5 team fighting team in the world. So in terms of the fact that EDG went through and they made all of these like weird roster changes throughout the season, kind of shattered their synergy for a bit, and they're still getting it back together. I think if Qiao Gu was able to win against EDG, it would be in taking advantage of that fact and the fact that they've been playing together the entire season. They have such a really good late game team fight, and forcing EDG to team fight them would be in their best interest.
Okay, Kelsey.
okay. So I'm sort of rehashing my point about Snake, but with a caveat. So I said that EDG can snowball the early game really well, right? I think EDG are more likely to do this in standard lanes against Qiao Gu than against Snake. I think that lane swaps will actually work out better for Qiao Gu, and EDG are more comfortable in standard lanes. Anyway, and though Qiao Gu lane swapped a lot in the regular season, they did it less in the playoffs. We saw them just sending their duo lane bot a lot in the finals in particular. I think those bottom lanes are somewhat close, but I still would give it to Deft Mako. And then, so if you have, like, if EDG has a situation where they have a favorable bot lane, that frees them up so much more, right? Because otherwise, in a way, it's extremely telegraphed. Clear Love will gank bottom lane pretty consistently.
Yeah.
But otherwise, if they do have a favorable bot lane matchup, then there's a situation where Clearlove has a lot more freedom to kind of explore opportunities to have a counter jungle off of Swift. I think both of them are actually very similar players. I feel like Swift is a better version of what Clearlove was last year in terms of how they play their early game. Swift is like a little bit inconsistent of where he wants to put his pressure, but he farms really well. They both go for some of these counter jungling styles, and I think that Clearlove has the advantage there in both the consistency and what he's able to do. I also think that in terms of the gold deficit at 20, EDG has the highest gold value at 20, Qiao Gu has the lowest. So even though Qiao Gu placed second overall in the regular season and won like the second most amount of games, they have the lowest gold value in a winning game in wins, like the lowest gold lead in wins of any team in the LPL. So that's pretty telling of how hard EDG can take control of a situation like that against them. And I think that's what we saw in the last time these teams faced, right? Qiao Gu did beat them in some late game team fights, right? They got a Baron. They managed to come out, but then Koro had like this clutch play where he got TNT in the second fight, and then EDG still won, just in part because they were already so far ahead, right? And when Koro and Clearlove are at least on point, like they don't have to be super consistent, then they can still control a situation as long as they're ahead. So I think that Edward Gaming should be able to take advantage of both like early game freedoms from their jungler and bot lane advantage, as well as just being so far ahead that teamfights don't matter, essentially.
You know, two players that know that feeling very well of having the low skill values, Deft and Pawn. Good old, I love using the Samsung Blue jokes. Alright, so that here comes the question. Who do we think is going to win out in that specific set between Qiao Gu and EDG? Let's have a vote on that one. Okay, so Michael as the third party, the third wheel.
I don't know if that works with a 4-person show.
No, it doesn't.
But, okay.
I like to remove
Man,
myself from
that's
this.
actually kind of hard.
Yeah.
Shit.
Remember, Mako said he's imploding, but he said this to Rookie, right? So
Man.
could be next level 9 gaming, right?
Oh,
Yeah.
the plans are already starting. The game already started. We're just not really.
This
yeah.
is when
Okay,
we're being
okay,
convoluted but not actually serious. So
Yeah.
All right,
yeah.
so I'm gonna believe. Okay, so clearly, like Aaron was drugged in playoffs. So now, I'm gonna actually rely on the fact. I'm actually gonna put my faith in EDG and say that they'll win if they, like, don't do whatever the fuck they did in playoffs, which is horrible drafting, and way too much focal point on Pawn. Like they need to revert to Pawn. They need to revert Pawn to a play style where he's just either kind of does his own thing, and if he goes ham, or he provides a distraction for the team. Like he's enough of a nuisance that it allows Clearlove to get, and then Koro's. Hold on. He provides enough of a nuisance so that Koro can stay self-sufficient and Clearlove can focus on bottom to get Deft ahead. If they can do those things and patch up their drafting, EDG should take this set. But playoff EDG would not take this set. So I'll still go with EDG because I think that having a blunder in one like playoffs ever shouldn't discount
It was
the fact.
literally 2 days.
Yeah.
Guys.
Just,
2
just
days.
that- yeah. So I'm just gonna like wash that off and just say, okay, this was just a bad period for them. Like they had bad strategy. Maybe something bad happened to Aaron. Who knows? But it's relatively easy fixes. And so I think if they revert to their old play, they'll be fine. So I'm gonna go EDG.
All right, Kelsey, just food for thought. If 2 years in esports is an entire person's career, then maybe 2 days is a season of like professional play. I don't know.
I mean, it could be.
This is the stupidest. I don't even know.
This could be.
Okay.
All right.
I mean,
Kelsey.
7 games is like half of an LCS split, right? So.
Oh god. Yeah.
It's true.
So, but I just when you
I
look
hear
at
the conflicting
those
thought.
games, even though there were serious issues with their late game team fighting all-ins or whatever, it's their early game they felt they had control, at least in the LGD set, and they misapplied jungle pressure, I feel, but they still got an advantage in a lot of the jungle ganks. It's just that a lot of the counter ganking, LGD or IG came with more than one person. So I think you can look over those games and identify where the problems were, and EDG players and coach have enough time and experience to be able to do that. So I still think that, yeah, it should be EDG.
Okay. Emily?
I actually, I don't think it's going to be super close, since they would be meeting at a best of 5 at this point, right? Yeah, so I think it's actually going to be 3-1 EDG.
Oof.
I think Qiao Gu can take a game, but I think that EDG is going to come in and not have a lot of those, because like it was more miscommunication, like synergy errors, and I think they'll be able to shore those up by the time that they face it. Like if they were facing Qiao Gu and made it through the first round, I think they'd be fine to beat them.
Screenshots of Mako just posting question marks in the perspective streams, like question. What is happening?
Yeah, I would give it to EDG just simply because I feel like throughout an entire 5-game set, like the more games you have, like it comes down to the fact that you have to be more flexible as a team and having more picks lined up, more strategies lined up, and I think that at that point, Qiao Gu will run thin on picks that will make them as good in team fights or as good with their specific strategies. And they're not even this good in one specific strategy, but it comes down to what's the best for our team fight. Okay, we'll have Victor. Okay, well, we'll take away Victor. And okay, we have Azir. And okay, we'll ban Victor, take away, like, there's a lot they can do, and when you literally just have a mid laner that can play Katarina, Lux, and Veigar and not give it crap because legitimately your whole strategy is to just take attention away, then have at it. Like, that is, you do you.
You'd be surprised,
You
but
do you.
Doinby's picks actually matter more to the composition
Yeah.
than Pawns, even though he plays weirder shit, so there
Yeah.
we go.
So I guess that just like officially means congratulations, Edward Gaming. You are the second seed in the China Talk finals here. Woo! I'm fatty, I
Woo,
wish I
China
had
Talk Regionals.
I know.
China Talk. All right. And so that means that, of course, Qiao Gu has been knocked down to the round 2 losers bracket, which still leaves Snake and IG. Snake and IG go up against each other. So
Oh, I'm done. I can just be the peanut gallery now. This is excellent.
Yeah, me
okay.
too.
yeah, pretty much.
No, because you still have to do your last round.
Oh
right?
wait, yeah, I still have to face one of these guys.
Oh god. So yeah, Snake versus IG. Let's start off with Snake Michael.
Okay, so I want to go with Snake here because the thing
You
I
have no
don't
choice.
no.
Because I literally drew
Oh.
the team for you.
Okay, yeah, okay, sorry. Yeah, this is okay. What I'm supposed to be doing here is all right. So what I dislike is putting like accounting for something to go perfect for a team when it usually doesn't, and it's more of a one-off, which is why EDG was the exception when I said that EDG would beat Qiao Gu, because that was a one-off in a negative light, whereas I think that IG showing up in the playoffs was a one-off in a positive light, and I feel like Snake has been a lot more consistent in their performance, and you can count on them to do certain things, right? You can count on them to do well in team fights, you can count on them to force those situations, and you can count on certain laners in that team. Whereas when you're looking at Snake, or when you're looking at IG, you're looking at a team that kind of most of the time were extremely passive and didn't make the first moves. And that's horrible when paired with the fact that the team literally does nothing from behind. They found like a perfect formula in the playoffs, but I don't think that they're just going to get that perfect formula again. Or that teams have scouted out IG and won't allow that to happen again based on those games. And yeah, so Snake, the only way Snake loses the set, honestly, is if IG does the same thing, but that would also require the team to like not anticipate what's going to happen, which was the whole like snowballing Kakao ahead and like just blasting EDG's jungle. I don't think that Snake will just like let that happen, because they have had better warding, and let's see. And I also do think that even if Rookie is an amazing player, that he's not like ultra consistent either, honestly. I know a lot of people say that, and I actually believe this too, like most of the year, that he was the best mid laner in China, but I still feel like it's kind of like random who shows up. I actually think that Kakao is probably the deciding factor in this match, and just for that alone, like I think there's too much of like a luck factor on like if this happens then for IG. So I think just based on just raw team fighting alone, I do think that Snake's gonna win.
Okay. I'll give it to IG. Simply because of the Kakao matchup, like you mentioned. I think Kakao, he has always been a player who can affect matches in a positive light. Recently, I feel like it's just, as you said before, motivation and kind of like random plays and not. And honestly, the team has, IG as an organization has always been hyper aggressive, and then recently they've kind of taken this extremely passive note. But now they've been rather like, I would say aggressive again, but more calculated in a sense. But I think if he gets his Evelyn pick, if he gets anything, I think he'll just affect the matchup simply because he'll be going up against most likely Beast. And I think Beast has been a player that hasn't been really performing well for the team lately, and that's just going to be the deciding factor. I think that's just it. And
See, the
how
thing-
he... Go on.
Based
I'll-
on the
I'll let you
interview, I
finish,
kind of
Jessica.
feel like ZZR will be playing, based on the fact
Okay.
that they interviewed the team and they interviewed Martin and ZZR, and they were talking about the EDG matchup. So I
Yeah.
kind of feel like they'll play ZZR in regionals.
I mean, my
And
thing
it's-
with
yeah.
this matchup is like I will not deny that Kakao is like infinitely better than Beast, but to circumvent Beast having weaker like matchups, they'll usually just roam with him as a
Mhm.
team to get things done, so that you don't have to worry about the individual jungle matchup. And I think that's what they'll do to circumvent the jungle skill disparity. But
I just feel like this is going to be one of those rare instances in which IG has a more stable roster than any other team here.
Yeah, this is true. They haven't changed in such a long time. They've just played their roster all season.
So just
all summer.
having a consistent lineup and knowing that these players are actually going to be like motivated in a sense, but at the same time these players are really good in their own right. So against Qiao Gu, I mean Snake, same teams apparently. Against Snake, I feel like Snake's gonna have too much to catch up on. With time, I think Snake can really perform well as a team, as a unit. But right now, I feel like they're still in the building period. All right, let's go into voting time. It is the election time, everyone. Emily.
All right. So in this case, I think it's one of the few instances where the top lane matchup is going to end up being really important. And in that case, I honestly think Flandra is going to crush Zatai. Not that I think Zatai is like super bad or anything. So he's really improved. But in terms of like other LPL top laners versus Zatai and then like Flandra versus Zatai, I think it's one of the few matchups that's really not in his favor. Especially the way that they really try to get Flandra going now as opposed to last season where it was all about Crystal. And then I don't know, I really like Snake's team fighting and skirmishing thanks to you. And I just really can't bet on IG. So I'm gonna go Snake over
Okay.
IG.
All right. Now from the peanut gallery, Kelsey.
So this is actually really, really hard because, like Emily said, I think it is this matchup is very much about the top lane, but these teams have actually been pretty close. Like IG 2-0'd them the last time they played each other in week 11. Snake and IG had a best of 5 that went to 5 games in Demacia Cup, even though Snake won, but it was like the first couple games IG was in their mode of not caring, so they still managed to like win 2 games after that, which is really impressive. I think Flandra can be extremely inconsistent, but so can Zatai. So I feel like that's why the matchup is almost so much so unstable, is because in a way I feel like these top laners are almost cut from the same cloth.
Yeah.
And both of them will try to kill you, right? So they're not going to it's not going to be one of those matchups where the top laner is just like farm and they play from behind like it will be in an EDG game, or it will be a matchup where the top laners are just like steady like in an LGD game, you know?
Yeah.
It's going to be really kind of explosive. And so I think even though it's so, I see if they do show up, I see this being a matchup where Kakao goes top, and so I think that can be something that will be a huge factor for them. And it's so hard because I feel like Snake should be the better team, right? But I actually think IG wins. So
there
hard.
we go, we did it!
And that's like depressing because I feel like Snake should go to Worlds, but if this matchup happens, they'll lose.
Yeah, it's gonna be probably their hardest matchup, I think. Well,
yeah, because I
next to
think
EDG.
Snake beats Qiao Gu,
Mhm.
and I think they're actually even. Yeah, I don't know. yeah, so I'm saying IG.
Okay, we got IG. We got a very reluctant IG, and we have a Snake. Okay, this could go to a tiebreaker. Okay, Michael.
Yeah, so I kind of realized that I messed up my last segment a bit, and Cardi kind of already explained the matchup thoroughly rather than actually defending Snake for the most part. But I kind of hold true to what I said earlier in that I still feel like the only and I'm not saying it's not a possibility because it really is. The only thing I don't like about vouching for IG here is just I don't want it to be like a, well, if the stars align and everything goes perfect, then IG will take it. But Kelsey did actually bring up some good points about the matchup. But even so, even though Zatai is like inconsistent and Flaunder's inconsistent, I actually feel like the team can do like again the thing is that if Snake has inconsistencies or weaker matchups, they know how to work around it, and I don't think IG does.
Mm.
And I think that's like the biggest thing for me. I think that Snake is a lot better at just like, oh well, we're having issues, okay, well we'll just run like we'll just like teleport here and all go together and then like gank and then force 5v5s all day. Whereas I don't think IG has that ability. Like if they have a weaker matchup and they fall behind, they're just like, what do we do, guys? I don't know. And then they just like fall over and die. And since I've only seen one set where IG's been proactive, yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and still say Snake will win. But I mean, if IG does manage to stay proactive, sure, IG can win. But just off of what I've seen throughout the entire split, I'm gonna have to stay with Snake.
Okay, so we have Emily with Snake, Drexen with Snake, and Kelsey with IG. I would be voting IG, but since I am the host, our tiebreaker is me taking away my own vote, so Snake wins.
I
Is that how it
also
works already?
New
I also
rule
think
just
like the
introduced.
big thing is that I think IG does have the best drafting in regionals, and Snake actually has the worst. So
Yeah.
it's like the other issue that I have. But yeah, I do think because it's just so dumb. Such a dumb matchup. Anyway, okay, Snake wins. Moving on.
Alright. Snake goes up.
That changed quickly. Fuck this! I can't bear the burden of voting for IG. It's so hateful.
I never vote for IG.
Oh my.
Okay.
You like betrayed your
first
like
I know.
own being.
Alright. Qiao Gu Reapers versus Snake. Oh god, it's the LSPL matchup. The bopping of the century. Alright.
And we all remember how exciting that used to be.
Alright. Emily,
Yo.
give us the info.
Okay.
How is Qiao Gu gonna do it?
All right. So, how Qiao Gu wins this matchup, I think it is going to come from the jungle. Primarily because if this is on 5.15 or even if it's on, there's still a chance it could be on 5.16, right? Maybe. We don't
I think.
know.
I don't
or
think
is it
it's-
definitely
I think
5.15?
it's gonna be 5.15.
Okay.
Because
Um,
don't they keep it even with Korea now?
Yeah, I
Pretty
think
much.
so.
Except for I
Yeah.
think Korea's actually started 5.15 earlier in their playoffs, but
Yeah.
Anyway, regardless, so 5.15, that still works. Basically, my point is that we all saw, like, beasts in Italy. And we all saw, even if they're
Rude.
playing...
I see where this is going.
Even if they're playing ZZR, I just don't think that... I think that there are too many champions that Qiao Gu can put Swift on that he's really comfortable with, that even if he doesn't end up creating like this ridiculous early pressure, he'll still be able to counter jungle and farm really well. And then again, in the like mid game, they'll just be able to rotate and out team fight Snake. Although I will say this, Snake's team fighting is also really, really good. So this matchup would be very interesting because you probably would see a lot of elaborate 5v5 team fights where both teams are like very well coordinated, because what Doinby kind of does for Swift in creating that like steadiness, I guess, on the map and creating a partner that can go in and protect Swift when he does kind of makes those weird decisions. I think you does the same exact thing for Flandra, actually. Because where Flandra might go in and it would be a mistake, I think that you ends up kind of saving him a lot in team fights and skirmishes. But then if I'm comparing the two teams, I still would give the edge to Qiao Gu in that, but I think it's very close because I also do respect Snake's team fighting a great deal.
All right, Drexen. Give us the go-ahead.
First, wait, which one? Sorry.
Explain
so
to
distracted
us
'cause,
why
like-
Snake.
Against
With
Qiao Gu.
Snake
Snake
beats
gets
Shark.
sorry, the fucking construction is like so distracting.
I don't know what it
Yeah.
is. Give us the jackhammer.
Yeah, I'm gonna actually go with Qiao Gu for this one because
You're supposed to tell us why Snake is gonna win.
Yeah.
You're already failing us.
sorry guys.
Snake's done
Not even Snake thinks Snake will win, guys. We're out of here.
Okay, fine. Okay, so if Snake, damn it, this is so hard though because I feel like Snake's way of winning is like Qiao Gu's forte, man.
Why?
pretty
Because
much.
I think Snake is a better team fighter than Qiao Gu. Boom! There you go. Get wrecked.
Maybe in straight.
That's the
God
construction
damn it,
site
dude,
going.
I can't do this. How do I say that Snake is better than Qiao Gu? Fuck. Okay. Alright. Let's see here. Fuck, this is so fucking hard, dude. I don't know if I can do it, guys.
It's fine.
I really-
Kelsey,
I really
come
don't.
in.
I really
You're
don't.
subbing in.
Sub like tag.
Be the Martin to
Alright,
his
Snake.
I
Crystal.
mean, if you give me 5 minutes, I can actually even change my shirt because I have a Snake shirt. But no, we'll just go.
I can't
We'll just
it.
do
Like,
this.
because fuck,
Uh,
I'd be doing the wrong thing if I just said why they can't do it. Damn it.
Hmm.
That's
Yeah.
what I want.
I actually think the only way Qiao Gu wins this is if they do lane swap. Because I do think that that's the weakness where they have their advantage. I think that the way that Yu approaches the team fight is so intelligent and patient that, I mean, they can literally, if everyone goes in and blows their stuff, he'll still have his ult and he'll still win. That's like, I kind of feel like he holds it so well, and he'll always get your carries, and there are these situations where, like, even if he loses lane, or even if Snake loses lane, there always have this like pocket trap guard, and these teams are similar in a lot of ways, except that I think that the way that the coordination between Flandra and Yu works is actually almost better than the coordination between Swift and Stoinby, just because I do feel like Flandra is almost more reliable than Swift in terms of his craziness working out. I think some of Swift's craziness is just too crazy.
It's just like, I'm jumping in, guys. You can't stop me.
And
I believe in you.
I'm going in,
the only
and they ain't coming back.
the only responsibility Flandre really has is getting ahead, whereas Swift also has the responsibility of being a jungler and ganking bottom lane, which bottom lane can be really strange for Snake because I think Martin is inconsistent and really weird, and that's like probably if TNT and TCT can do really well in bottom lane, I think that's another way that Qiao Gu can win. But TCT and TNT just have not been doing well bottom lane in isolation by themselves. So, and I think again it comes down to the support. And Ella is so good as an I'm going to hold my AD carry's hand type support that he does make lanes go at least even all the time. So for me it's just like Snake has better team fighting and more patient team fighting, and Qiao Gu can win in a lane swap situation, but I don't see, like, V is just gonna get crushed by Flandra.
Really?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, I think so. And Yu and Doinby is an interesting matchup, but I ultimately think that, like, even Doinby is going to have some trouble there. Because Doinby's weird. Doinby I don't think is, like, super good, but he's just
important.
weird. He's important.
He's like
Who
incredibly
on Snake
important.
isn't weird?
Yeah, I mean, I
Like,
feel
it's-
like these teams are so weird.
Yeah, it's so hard to describe Doinby
But
because
I do
it's
think
like
I think Snake
know
has
what?
an advantage over Qiao Gu. So
We're doing it. We're voting right now. Okay. Kelsey, Who do you think is gonna win this one?
I mean, I just said Snake, so.
Okay, there we go. That was the Okay, Drexen.
I mean, I want to be able to convince myself that Snake is a better team, but I just can't because
Can't do it.
even if Snake is better than a straight up 5v5, which I actually don't really agree with, I still think QG's better with skirmishes, and I do think that even though they're bad in lane, I do think their duo is better in team fights. So,
All right.
I mean, I could see the Flandre V thing, but even then, I don't see it as like a smash. I see it as like Flandra's like a better top laner, not like massively so either. So I don't know.
All right, we're tied 1 apiece. We've got Snake and Qiao Gu. Emily.
All right. So I think it's gonna be close. And even though I argued for Qiao Gu, I actually think Snake takes this. And again,
God
it's
damn it.
primarily because of the top lane matchup. Because like I voted Flandra over Zatai, right? And I think Zatai is a better top laner than V.
Okay.
And additionally,
Wow.
because I know, right?
I mean, I agree with her. What?
Yeah.
I actually disagree.
Actually-
What is wrong with V, dude?
Actually,
don't
no. I
understand.
think if they let V play like Fondra and Zatai, he would be good. Like, he'd be
Yeah, but
really
they
good.
don't.
But
he
they
can't.
don't. He's in the
Yeah.
same position
They
as
already
Fondra was
have
last year.
Swift. Yeah,
Last
they already
split.
have Swift.
Yeah, okay, I can see that.
Okay, duty.
I do disagree.
So he has to be this guy.
So I do disagree with Kelsey that their 5v5 is better than Qiao Gu's, because I actually still think Qiao Gu's is better. But in terms of just knowing how to play the map better, I think, I don't know, I give that edge to Snake. And I also think that they're good enough in team fights that they wouldn't fall like ridiculously far behind in through team fighting. And then obviously the Flandra V matchup, like I said. And then bot lane's really weird for me because it depends on the supports. And then that I would have to give the edge to Ella in
Definitely,
lane.
yeah.
But then in terms of team fighting, I do think TNT is like way better than Martin. So
Okay.
but I don't know. I think in the end,
I mean,
it's
if
gonna
Martin
come
gets
down
Jinx, that's like his one good team fighting
Yeah.
champion, right? So.
I do think it's gonna come down to Flandra and Jude, though.
Unfortunately, if he does get Jinx, Ella is willing to throw his body on the grenade
Yeah.
for you. You know, I don't know any part of that song except for that one part. But so,
Poor Ella. That poor guy.
oh god. So okay, we have 2 votes for Snake, 1 vote for Qiao Gu, and of course that already means my opinion doesn't matter, but my opinion matters to me. Okay, so
It matters to me too, Raz. I actually am really curious about this because I think it's
Yeah.
super close.
Okay.
I like going into playoffs. I said that if Qiao Gu and Snake ever face, it's gonna be like the most interesting matchup for me. So
yeah, I would give it to Qiao Gu. Funny enough, simply because I think that just watching the LGD match, no matter how often LGD fucked up, I think that Qiao Gu showed a real ability to team fight, and of course, and skirmish, and like anyone can say the same about Snake, and they have amazing mechanical players. That's true, but I think how Qiao Gu played out their I don't want to say their spacing, but how they utilized their tanks, how they were able to really just set up these fights so well. And I guess even though they have mostly I wouldn't say non-existent early game, but it's kind of like he farms a lot.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's pretty.
Yeah, it's pretty not there, but he does position himself to be able to counter gank to save his lanes properly. So I want to say Qiao Gu plays out team fights better, and I think that's what it comes. If both teams, regardless of the lane matchups, if both teams literally just come down to the one idea of team fighting, Qiao Gu should edge out very, very slimly. But I think they come ahead, and I think that you said it, you made the point about you playing team fights extremely well. But I want to see the mid lane matchup is going to be the one that dictates a lot of it. If you get to Zir, I think that's going to be Yu's best champion for this specific matchup. I don't know if he will, and I'm not sure, and I don't really have a lot of faith for the other picks that he's willing to go for. Because if Victor comes out, then I think that they are able to really just jump on Victor, and none of the other team, like, I think the rest of Snake will just kind of not, they won't be able to pick it up. That's just I don't know. That's how I feel like it. That's how the set comes down for me. But unfortunately, Snake has already come out the leaders here. They're the third team heading to the China Talk Worlds.
I feel like I have to go rewatch Snake and QG games because I actually don't see a case where Snake's better at straight up 5v5ing than QG did in the playoffs, but I could be wrong.
I'm
A
ready
lot
for the
of
like
Snake
neither.
versus QG games are like really weird
Well, I
yeah.
don't mean
because
that
they're
matchup
decided
specifically.
by
I mean
Flandra
like
doing dumb
individually.
shit. So it's like super strange. But
Yeah.
I don't know. I just
This will
yeah.
be fun. We don't. No
It'll
one
be
knows
interesting.
who's coming in as the third seed, and that's
I mean,
probably
I
the best.
think
And every
ultimately we just agreed that Qiao Gu would make it anyway because I said that IG would beat Snake and then Qiao Gu I think is gonna beat IG again. So
yeah,
it would be the same result.
we'll see.
We shall see.
We'll
this
see.
weekend.
All right, that's already the greatest wrestling promotion. We shall see this weekend at the pay-per-view.
There this weekend.
All right, so I guess that's the end of the episode here, right? Nothing really else to talk about in the Chinese League of Legends.
Or maybe EDG will just completely bomb out and we'll have Qiao Gu and Snake going to Worlds and then.
Oh my god.
That- please no.
It just
And then everyone's gonna be like, who are these Koreans? How did a team with no name Koreans
Join B.
who is
join
Ella?
the
I wanna
Ella?
hear Remington say Qiao Gu Reapers though, like super enthusiastic.
Why does this team have? Why is this team playing with only one Korean? One of the other ones must be Koreans. No, okay.
What is the Spanish player named Aya in the bottom line? What is the support?
Wow.
Hey,
Jesus.
Oh god. All right. So let's do some shout outs. Jackson, kick us off here.
All right, so as usual, shout out to the lovely panelists, and then also Esports Heaven, and then, yep. All I got for you
he
guys.
has some interviews and stuff with Snake players.
Yeah, the rookies of Snake that are hopefully showing up. Otherwise, it's not all that relevant.
I'm pretty sure they're gonna play
Hopefully.
ZZR because why
Mhm.
would they?
Yeah.
Why would
I hope they-
ZZR talk about the
But the
Clear
thing-
Love
like,
matchup if he's not gonna play Clear Love?
Yeah, agreed. Like I said, that does kind of bother me because he's like Herald's fucking Clear Love, and I don't like that mentality when
He's
you're
like,
facing.
someday I want to be able to play like Clear Love.
Oh my god.
Clear
No,
Love
you
is so good.
you kind of had that attitude, right? Where he was like super depressed, and he's like, I don't even feel like I'm good enough to ask Pawn what to do.
Well, that
We
now
talked
he's
about
saying that
this
he
time.
wants to prove that he's the best. He wants to be the best mid in LPL now, so
That's good.
maybe he's
He's
changed his
keeping-
attitude.
I was gonna say
Maybe.
that's a better attitude than
And
being
he
Or maybe
did
he's-
say, and he did like have there was another translation of something else where he was talking about Pawn that I initially read as there was no way I was ever going to be as good as Pawn and play for Pawn, but apparently the actual translation was like, even if I became better than Pawn, I wouldn't have a chance to play. So
Oh my god, that's like day and night there. Anyways.
Yeah, that's
so
a
Yeah.
lot different.
Yeah, we'll see.
Alright.
I think Snake will be pretty good. Also, shoutouts to Hideo Kojima, also a fan of Snake. You can play him tomorrow. Oh wait, today if you're watching this. Oh
There we
man,
go.
it's gonna be good, guys. I'm hype.
Oh, the hype is
It's
real.
not voiced by David Hayter though. I mean that's the sad part.
That is pretty sad actually.
It is.
Kelsey?
So shoutouts to the score. I did that really long article about Qiao Gu where I compared them to Snake. I'm going to do similar articles on the other regional teams this week. Tomorrow is EDG day. I'm finally able to release the Clear Love interview that I did, so that's while I was in China, so that's fun. And yeah, also shoutouts to Emily who is coming out with apparently a bunch of stuff this week, so
Oh,
Sweet. I like bunches of stuff.
Oh,
Alright, shoutouts to LOL Esports and Liquid Legends, just because I have a bunch of stuff coming out. A Korean regional preview, Chinese regional preview, a bunch of individual team things, and then more individual team things on Liquid Legends for their regional previews. So, and I also wrote, so I actually have an article I'm really proud of. And some of it's still relevant, even though SKT absolutely obliterated KT in the finals. I did like a SKT KT preview that I really liked because I talked about a lot of the differences in Korea this year as opposed to previous years. So if you're at all interested in that or the history between those two teams, you can check that out. It's on Liquid Legends.
Woo! Woo! Woo!
the way I like to start off of introducing my topics is like, I'm actually really, proud of one of my articles. It rarely happens. But no, yeah. Okay, so my shoutouts is Dignitas. No, Rock Solid EU. I was gonna do that one of these days. Diggy. So good stuff. Good jokes. I wanted to. Okay, I kind of messed that one up. Anyways.
What about the Chiefs?
Dude,
They
you
did
can't
pretty
say
well.
good jokes when you make the joke. But
Yeah, that's true. Oh yeah, Chiefs. Shoutouts to the Chiefs as well. They did really, as Emily said, they did really well. They're going back home.
Shout out to your
Lions.
blog post about
Oh yeah.
experimentation.
Oh yeah.
Oh, that was
Yeah,
really
yeah,
good.
yeah. Oh my
That was
God.
really good. What the fuck? You need to shut that out.
Oh, there we go. Thank you. I almost forgot about that. Yeah, I made a entire blog post about experimentation, the bullshit idea of, oh my God, we should value all of these games.
Easy,
And what?
easy, easy.
Yeah,
Hilarious.
actually, okay, so I did a really bad job of defending China on SI, but I did actually want to bring that up because I didn't even bring up the whole sandbagging thing because that's a whole other issue. But in terms of experimentation, why I've actually really enjoyed watching China and some of the things I've really enjoyed watching Korea is because, as was pointed out on that show by Monty himself, there's so many more games. And so when you have that many more games, you get to experiment, like throwing Aurelia mid and throwing Master Yi mid, and doing all sorts of things like that.
I mean, it's a hard thing to win though because Korea's caught up in quantity of games, but it's context that matters, and like people don't
The
accept,
value?
But I mean, just
scrim culture being different is like a
the
justification.
scrim culture
So-
is different.
Even
But
still,
even just in like comparing this year's Korea with past years, like you cannot tell me that every single time SKT loaded up into a game, they were like, we are taking this 100% seriously. We're playing all of our best champions. No, like, and that doesn't mean they're not playing to win either. That's totally not the point. The point is that it gives you a chance to try out different things in a competitive environment, and I don't necessarily think that's a bad thing.
And when you say experimentation,
Maybe that makes me a huge plebe. Whatever.
and when you say experimentation, like I said earlier, it's not about being super calculated and this is how we're going to plan our time to learn to develop these weaknesses. It just means, you know what, we suck at lane swapping. Maybe we should lane swap this game, even if it doesn't make any sense, because we suck at lane swapping. Hey! And then they
I
go
also want
in
to-
and they still suck at lane swapping, but maybe
Yeah, I
they
gotta
learned
make this point.
something.
I gotta
So-
make this point because it's like I gotta make this point because it's like a really bullshit concept of, oh, we play more games, therefore they have the same value, correct? No, like in China, in Korea, like legitimately, the placements of the teams matter if you go into playoffs. Like first, second, third seed, fourth seed, that's all decided based on your regular season play, and that wasn't even true for China up until later, like legitimately, like
Week 7 or
halfway,
something.
like week
Mhm.
7.
Yeah.
And on top of that, even before that, take that away, and it still has less value in China, simply because in Korea, it's a lot more competitive. Like, SKT can do what they want, sure, they can play, like, Aurelia mid, Master Yi mid, sure, they can, like, swap around their rosters like EDG has been doing, maybe to a lesser extent now lately, but for the rest of the teams, literally 5 places out of 10. Like that's like half. That's already immediately as like really competitive in terms of like who's going into playoffs, who's not going into playoffs. You talk about like China, that's 8 places, 8 teams a good portion of those teams suck. So you can see teams like Vichy. Like, I'm not gonna lie.
Vichy, OMG, they suck. But I still think like the rest of the teams are pretty. Like we just agonized for an hour and a half, right, about
Mhm.
who's gonna win IG versus Snake and who's gonna win Snake versus Qiao Gu, right? So.
Yeah. But like getting these teams and having like their goals, getting into playoffs, that's an easy goal. Like not even just easy, not so much for like obviously teams that are not so developed like World Lead or M3, but the goal for if you are legitimately Qiao Gu or Snake and you are pretty confident that you're getting into like playoffs, knowing that how the what's it called, how the bracket's going to be, you're going to be pretty, you're not going to take the game as value, like it's not going to have as much value as any other team. You can go into a game and say this is not going to matter as much.
And
But
for the regular season teams games, they go in and they don't really have a plan. It's like, that's what we're saying! We're not saying that they have some sophisticated plan and they're experimenting and calculating how they're gonna do this. It's not what we're saying at all. You're just supporting our fucking point now! Oh, thank you!
Yeah. And to reiterate my points, I'm not really upset that Monte Cristo has this opinion. I'm upset that nobody had this opinion before he said something, and now everybody like will not get off his dick. Like seriously, please. I'm sure he would even prefer that you just fucking think for yourself. Like, do not take his word for the Bible. Like, just watch the games yourself. Like,
And
go through the regular
obviously-
games and formulate your own opinion. Like, watch and see what you think.
And
Like, don't
obviously,
just-
I think Monty has reasons for his opinion. But anyway, Keith, please continue.
No, I was just gonna say, like, just don't put so much value on someone that's frankly not as educated as other people in the Chinese region. Like, there's simply too many games for him to be able to analyze every regular season Chinese game to the level that some of us do. Like, I'm sorry, it's true. I mean, sure, we don't have like thousands and thousands of fucking Twitter followers, but that's irrelevant. Like, people are like, okay, he's the face of analysis, so it must be correct. And you know what? Maybe it is, maybe it's not. I don't think it is. Most of us don't share that opinion. But please just watch the games and fucking make your own opinion. Like, don't just parrot someone from the community that is an expert in another region. Like, people shouldn't parrot any of us. Like, formulate your own opinions. Like, sure, you can come to experts for the quick rundown on any given topic, but you can still formulate your own opinion if you're conflicted on something, like one way or another. It doesn't have to be like, well, I'm going to listen to these two popular figures that haven't shown credentials that they know anything. Just find out yourself. It's
so
possible.
the word of
It's
the
not hard.
day is debate, and of course information. Like everybody, I know a lot of people watch LPL, and it's great having those discussions
I
with those
agree.
people.
If I agree with Monty, if we did explain away every bad thing a Chinese team did with, oh, they're experimenting, or oh, they're sandbagging, or oh, this game doesn't
Yeah.
mean anything, that would be
Yeah.
really frustrating and infuriating. Like, that would be stupid analysis. But
Exactly.
if you watch the show, maybe you can tell me I'm wrong, but I don't think that's what we do. So,
No, we just talked about a lot of bad things. Teams.
I'm pretty sure we talk about Chinese teams sucking more than anyone else.
Yeah, actually, we are
Probably.
legitimately the biggest downers when it comes to Chinese teams. Like every week we're always like, "Oh, these guys
They're
suck. How
doing
about this
really
team?
well,
How
but-
bad are they sucking this week? Oh my God, this is awful games. Another week of awful stuff. Literally, you
We
just have
actually
to
had
go
a
through the
sketchy
first
year.
5 minutes of
Yeah.
every China talk. First 5 minutes, and we're like, "Oh, this week is awful." So.
We're like, yeah, the week coming up is going to be bad, so we're going to talk about LSPL and catch you up on that.
which, talking about
We
bad
literally
Chinese teams.
did have a week where we did that.
So if you don't even want to be informed about the games themselves and just of our opinions, hey, we're literally, this is China Talk, where you're watching the show. So let's talk about what we have said on this show consistently every week. We don't even have to watch every episode. Just pick randomly 3 episodes and you can find our opinions on them. So that's always lovely. And with that being said, I guess this is time for us to wave us off here, guys.
Again.
Yeah, wave us off again.
Supposed to come prepared with Metal Gear Solid memes, but I didn't.